Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Adedimpe, and in this video I'm going to be showing you how to make a native Yoruba African filla. It's not limited to Yoruba alone, and it's going to be simple, and I'm going to be using a damask fabric. You can actually make use of any fabric of your choice. So I'm going to be working with the collar stay of 23 inches by 3 inches. So the 23 inches is the head circumference of my client. You're not going to be adding any sewing allowance to this collar stay. So the first thing I'm going to be doing is to rule out the edges so as for me to have a clean edge to work with, clean and straight edge to work with. So I'm going to be ruling that part out. And the next thing I'm going to be doing is to input the head circumference of my clients, and I'm going to be adding 2 inches to it, which means 1 inch for each side as a sewing allowance. So the next thing I'm going to be doing is to rule the line up. So the next thing I'm going to be doing after this is to input the height of the cap. The height here is going to be 9. It's not restricted to 9, but it's mostly 9. There are funny fillers that are as long as your shoulder length, so you can as well do your desired length. It's on a standard form, it's often 9. So I'm going to be measuring 9 inches all around, and this 9 inches include the sewing allowance. So you don't need to add any seam allowance to it after this 9. So I went ahead and I ruled it out, then I cut it out. The next thing I'm going to be doing is to place the cutout stay on it in such a way that I have 0.75 at that edge. I'm going to be marking that 0.75 out so that it will guide me, so that I will not iron the stay beyond that 0.75. So, and also at both sides, I'm going to be ensuring that I have 1 inch seam allowance left out. So I'm going to be centralizing my collar stay. And the point to note here is, if you want your filler to really be strong at the edge, to really be firm, to have structure at this edge, you have to double this collar stay. So instead of using one, you proceed to use 2. So I'm going to be placing another one on it while ironing it. So this is what I have after pressing the stay to the damask fabric. Ensure you still have your stitch allowance intact and your excess of 0.75 intact. So I'm going to be flipping it like you see me do, and I'm going to be making it very firm to the collar stay, and I'm going to be pressing it out. So the next thing I'm going to be doing is, at that angle, I'm going to be sewing it by 0.25, which is 1/4 of an inch. I'm going to be top stitching on it by 0.25. It's not compulsory you do this, but I like to do it so as to give structure to that part. So the next thing I'm going to be doing is to give it a good press again to open up that place to make it lay flat. So after doing that, I went ahead and I cut lining for it. So it's not compulsory you use the regular lining, you can use a fancy lining. So you are going to cut exactly the same thing that you have on your damask on the lining. So the lining is going to be beneath, while the damask is going to be on top. So you are going to be stitching by half of the stitch allowance you have there. Half of the 0.75, you are going to be stitching on half of it. So you are going to be stitching it all the way down. So after doing that, the next thing we are going to be doing is to flip it open. Then you're going to bring one side to meet the other side, just as you see me do in the video. You are going to be aligning them together. That 0.25 sewn earlier is going to align with the other one at the other edge, and that place where the lining starts also must align. Where the stay starts must also align together. Everything must, in short, align together, and you're going to be stitching it. You can either stitch from one center out, then the other center out, or you start from one edge and sew all the way down. So ensure you align it all through. You don't want it missing out. You just have to align it. That's what I kept on doing, aligning till I sew through that part. So ensure your stitch is very close to your collar stay, but not sewn on your collar stay. Your stitch shouldn't be on the collar stay. It's going to make it difficult to lay if you sew on it. So ensure you not sew on the collar stay, but very close to it. So I ensure I marked my 1 inch all around so as not to if you did not mark your 1 inch or you did not highball it and just sew something, you may eventually have a tight cap. So I did the same for the lining. I measure my seam allowance also there, and I sew it all the way through. So the first thing I'm going to do is to go and press that place open. So I proceeded to press it open. That is what I have after pressing it. You can see it's laying flat and nice. So the next thing I'm going to be doing is to flip it by my remaining stitch allowance. So I'm going to be flipping it to the right side. So I'm going to ensure that I still have the excess of about 0.25 also flipping from the damask to the lining part. So that is it. So I'm going to go and press it out. I'm going to go proceed and press it out just as you see. This is it, all neat and nice. So that is the back laying so flat. So I'm going to proceed from, and I'm going to be stitching it all around by 0.25. So the next thing I'm going to be doing is to work on this edge. So I'm going to ensure that I top stitch all around the lining before I trim the excess off. The excess happened, I cut equal size of lining together with the damask, but we arrive at the excess by pulling some of the damask fabric to the lining part. So I'm going to be trimming off the excess just as you see me do. So this is what I have left. So we are going to proceed to the cap cover itself. So to get the cap cover, you just have to place what we had sewn earlier, the way you see me do, on your leftover fabric, and you're going to put your hand inside and you're going to ensure you make it sit well on the fabric you have beneath. And once you're sure you get some sort of circle, you are now going to mark around it. Ensure you don't leave a seam allowance. Mark very close to the edge of what you had sewn earlier. So I'm going to proceed to mark it all around. I left some stitch allowance which I eventually cut out. So ensure you don't have seam allowance.
So the next thing I'm going to be doing is to cut out a lining that is of the same size with the marked out circle area. So I'm going to be top stitching on it all around, ensuring that my lining is beneath the main fabric, which is the damask. So I'm going to be cutting around the circle, ensuring that I'm not cutting through the stitch. I'm only going to be cutting very close to the stitch.
So the next thing I'm going to be doing is to ensure that I align the cap itself to the cap cover. So the only way to sew it once and get it right is to ensure that you notch the cap cover into two, just as you see me do, and notch around, or make a point if you don't want to notch. Make a mark on both sides. So one of it will be fitting into the center front, while the other will be fitting to the center back. That's the center back. So I'm going to be holding the center back to mark the center front. So I'm marking the center back as well. So I'm going to be starting from the center back. So one of the mark out parts on the cap cover is going to be meeting with the center back. And while sewing, I'm going to be ensuring that one of the other marked out parts on the cap cover is also aligning with the center front. So here you can see that I'm aligning the right side of the cap cover to the right side of the cap itself, just as you see me do in the video. So I'm going to be stitching it all around. So I proceeded to stitch it all around. Make sure you align it well together and stitch all around. So I went ahead to stitch all around it. But cap cover should be equal with your cap itself. If you follow everything rightly, it should be equal. Even if it means stretching one to meet up with the other, it should end up meeting up equally to each other. So this is what I have. So this is our cap all sewn together. So this is it. So the next thing I'm going to be doing, which is absolutely optional, is to weave all around. So I weaved all around to have a neat finishing. So I'm going to be flipping it to the right side. So I'm going to be flipping it to the right side. This is the filler looking so beautiful, all nice and good. It's important you do this so as to align your centralize your filler. So I'm going to be holding it like that. Mere holding it like that is making the filler to bend on its own. So you decide which side you want it to bend to. If it is a married man, then it bends to the right side. If it's a single man, a bachelor, it bends to the left side. So you are going to give it a good press to retain the side you want it to be. So you're going to be pressing it out. And here comes to the end of the tutorial. If you are yet to subscribe to my channel, please subscribe, like, share my video. Thanks.